On today's Frequent Miler on the Air, we cover two cards offering 5 free nights. We describe 5 ways we've been Bonvoyed. And we announce the 2025 Frequent Miler Team Challenge. Frequent Miler on the Air starts now. Today's main event, announcing the 100K Vacay Team Challenge. That's right, we're back with a new team challenge. We do these every year. In fact, last year we kind of accidentally did two of these, but we couldn't help it. But normally we do one a year where we challenge each other to make the most of points and miles, see who can stretch miles and points the furthest. And this year we're going to be competing to see who can build the best vacation out of 100,000 points.
And I got to say, I'm pretty excited about it because the whole idea kind of started back with the fact that there was a good 100K offer out there. And I started thinking about, what could you do with this? Could you plan a whole trip with just this 100,000 points? And then, I went from feeling pretty good about that to thinking, I don't know what you really could with all the points out there, to now being really excited again and thinking, man, you could do some cool stuff with just 100,000 points. So I can't wait to see what everybody pulls out of the bag, so to speak, on this one, pulls out of the hat, whatever you want to say. But we'll talk more about that later. Remember, if you want to come back to stuff later on, you can always find the timestamps in the show notes, or you can jump ahead, return to something, so on and so forth. And wherever you're watching or listening to this, don't forget to, first of all, like it, give it a thumbs up, give us some stars, leave us a review, leave us a comment. We always love to hear from you. All right, so now I think it's time to drag out this week's giant mailbag.
Yeah, speaking about pulling things out of the bag, let's pull some giant mail out of the giant mail bag. First up is from PDX Beach on the episode last week, It's Raining Mail, from the giant mailbag episode. So PDX Beach says, Dugroz. So this was someone who wrote in a couple times that we read mail from last week, is actually pronounced Dugroz. You actually pronounce the Z, even though it's a play on his name with a Z instead of an S. So there you go. Good.
There you go.
Tip from PDX Beach.
Dugroz it is. So Dugroz reports on YouTube. That was that's who the comment came in from. So you can check that out and our double check our pronunciation.
Right. So someone else wrote in saying it's really worth checking out his channel. I haven't yet, but I intend to check it out soon.
Well, I took a look at a couple. I saw the cottages.com review he did a while back of a place they stayed, I think in Scotland, that looked fantastic. So yeah, there's some good stuff there.
Oh, cool. All right. Thank you, Dugroz, too. All right. Lisa wrote in. She said, "Hi, friends. I say friends because I listen to you constantly on walks, flights, errands, doing dishes. So at this point, it feels like we hang out more than I do with some actual friends. No offense to them, but they don't help me book ANA first class. I'm only a few years into the hobby, but I've already reached the absolutely ruined by points phase. After flying ANA first on the A350 from Honolulu to Narita for 40,000 Virgin points, I became that person. I now reject perfectly reasonable flights because the seat shell looks a little too 2016, or the footwell isn't giving room to wiggle, not wedge. You've joked about this first world spiral on the pod, so I'm hoping you've got a system. Any tools or shortcuts you use to quickly size up a biz class product without opening 6 tabs in a YouTube black hole? I know equipment swaps happen, but I'd love to avoid turning every redemption into a minor research thesis. Thanks for making the show such a fun, genuinely helpful guide for all of us chasing the dream of flying fancy for almost free."
I loved this. I saw this come in, and this was one of my favorite pieces of giant mail to come through in a while. So thank you, Lisa. I'm glad you wrote in with this. And it's funny because we can laugh that we've all, not all, but many of us, I guess, who redeem a lot of miles and points have at some point found ourselves in that situation where we're kind of comparing little things that, in the overall scheme of things, probably don't really matter, but if you're listening to this and you're like, oh my goodness, this is ridiculous, why do you go into all this detail? In Lisa's defense, when you're earning your points and you're working to earn the points, you want to use them well, right? And there can be a pretty big difference sometimes in products. And so you want to fly comfortably. And for a lot of people, that have gotten into this hobby anyway. The flight is part of the vacation. It's not just a means to get there, but it's part of the trip. It's an exciting part of the trip. So I totally understand
Yeah.
where Lisa's coming from on this because there's so much variance. You know, you look at like an airline like Qatar. Everybody talks about Q Suites, and you hear how fantastic Q Suites is, and the lounge in Doha, and blah blah blah. But during three cards, three continents, I flew Manila to Doha. And when I first booked it, I hadn't even looked. I just assumed it's got to be Q Suites, right? Isn't that all they got? Not really. I knew better than that, but I didn't realize how bad some of their business class products were, and it was a pretty bad business class product. That said, it was much better than flying in economy. So I try not to overly obsess over those details. I generally the flights that we want, the times that we want over the product, especially, one plane to another because equipment swaps do happen. So I don't really obsess over that very much. But I do take a look at a few reviews and whatnot. I don't know. How do you avoid going into the black hole on this, Greg?
Yeah, for me, it depends on the situation. Most of the time, all I'm looking for is, if it's a long distance flight, lie flat seats, ideally, direct aisle access as well. I like to have,
Right.
and although if it's, me and my wife flying, and so one of us doesn't have direct aisle and has to walk over the other, that's not the end of the world. So I usually don't sweat it unless I'm really excited about trying out a particular flight, like ANA's A350. That's where you would sweat it, of course. But if you're going after that particular flight, you already know that information that Lisa was talking about. So there is one trick, though, that's really helpful for getting a rough idea of what you're going to get, which is if you look up the flight on Google Flights, just look up the exact, time, date, and destination and everything. In the search results, as long as you search for business class or first class, when you expand, from just seeing the price, you expand it out a little bit, it'll say things like lie flat seat or something
Individual
like a lie
suite.
flat suite. It'll say suite if it's like you've got to close a door that closes. And that gives you a pretty good hint about the quality of what you're going to get.
It does. It does. That's a great shorthand method, and I've certainly used that before too. So great shorthand method. And like I said, you do want to have that. I mean, over take Emirates A380, not A380, they're 777 business class, for instance. That's like, I don't know, was it like four across in the middle or something? Maybe it's not. I don't know, but it's more than two across in the
Right.
middle, and
Yeah.
you don't want to be in the middle seat in that case. So
Right.
it's worth taking a look, I guess. But yeah,
Right. Right.
I don't obsess too
Also,
much.
one of my favorite flights ever was a Qatar flight from Croatia to Doha in business class on a almost on a small jet, so single aisle jet. It was 2x2 seating. The seats were big and plush, but not even lie flat. I don't think. I'm not sure about that. But it was a daytime flight, so I didn't care about that. And the catering and the service were just beyond anything I'd experienced elsewhere. So, you might be losing out if you held out for something better in that example. You might be losing out on a bet on the best experience. So
That's
you
true.
just
That's
never know.
true. That's true. The Google Flights tip, though, that is a good one. Recently, I ran across Copa flights to and from South America, and I didn't think that Copa had lie flat business class. They fly 737s mostly, but lo and behold, Google Flights said this is a lie flat seat, and I was like, wait a second, wait, is they have a lie flat on a 737? And sure enough, they do. So,
Yeah. Well, that's
you
actually
know.
because the seat backs are broken and they just fall back into the lap of the person behind you. But
Oh, oh, boo. All right. Yeah. So that's that. Hopefully that
I
helps you, Lisa.
jest.
We know, we know. All right, let's get into card news. We got a whole bunch of card news going on today. So first up, we've got something new that we launched.
We did. We launched in beta a new version of our best offers page. So yes, we're messing with perfection because it's not, our best offers page is great in that it lists the best card offers that are publicly available, regardless of whether we get paid if you click through or not. But what it's not great about is filtering, sorting, finding what you want. It's a pretty static page. So we've introduced a new version where you have actual filtering and sorting and even a search box. So we're not done. We're not ready to launch it yet. It's very much in beta in that we know there are important things missing, but we wanted to get it out there so that people could give us feedback right away about like what is most needed, what do you most need in that tool. For example, the first version let you filter to a single bank at a time, and people wrote in saying, "Well, I want to be able to filter to everything except for the banks that hate me." Right? like
Right.
like I was shut down by Chase and Amex, let's say. So I want to deselect those two, not pick just one bank. And so we've already updated it to allow that kind of thing. So that's what we're looking for. So check it out. If you go to our best offers page, there's now a button that lets you view the dynamic version of the page. And so check it out, and it'll be changing regularly as we go.
Yeah, I'm excited about that. There are a lot of those filtering options are things that I've wanted also myself, and I think I say all of us probably have wanted at
Mm,
some point, and it's not as easy as it seems to to make it work. But it looks pretty cool, and we're getting there. And so please do give us that feedback. We know that there are additional things that we want it to have already too. So it's like Greg said. I just want to reemphasize. We know it's not done. That's why it's a beta. But let us know so that we can take into account what people are most interested in and prioritize.
yeah.
All right, let's talk about other card news. So speaking of new card offers, we have 5 free night offers from Chase. Now, I've been on vacation all week, so I think, Greg, you're going to have to tell me what these new offers are all about.
Sure. So there are two different hotel cards that are offering 5 free nights. First up, well, okay, let me just say both of them require $5,000 spend in 3 months in order to earn your 5 free night certificates, and those certificates are good for 1 year from issue. The first up, IHG Premier card. That's a $99 a year card. It has a number of really good perks if you stay at IHG properties, and it's offering 560K free night certificates. The downside of this one is you cannot top off those certificates. So if you want to stay at a hotel that's charging 61,000 points per night, you're out of luck. You have to find one where it's 60,000 points or less. So you're almost certainly not going to get 300,000 points worth of value. I mean, that would be a miracle. Especially also considering one of the perks of this card is fourth night free on award bookings, but you don't get that with free night certificates. You only get that on points bookings. So even if you found 5 nights at 60,000 points exactly that you use this for, spending with points would be 4 times 60 to get the same number of nights. So anyway,
So
next up we have,
wait,
well,
hold on. How much are those free night certificates worth? I mean, how much is a 60K? Like, to give me an idea as to whether this bonus is worthwhile, how much is each 60K free night certificate worth?
oh, I don't know off the top of my head, but if you go to our reasonable redemption values page, we have a section on free night certificates, and you could check there what we estimated them to be worth.
There you go. Good. Good. Okay. Sorry.
Um,
Didn't mean to cut you off. I
all
did
right.
mean to cut you off, but I
Did
apologize
you
for cutting
expect
you
me
off.
to have an answer off the top of my head?
Well, I mean, I thought you might. I don't know. You're Greg the frequent miler. I don't know what you have memorized.
All right. Next up, we've got the Marriott Bonvoy Boundless card, which is a $95 annual fee card, and that's offering 550K free night certificates. Now, those can be topped off up to 15,000 points to each one, so you could stay at properties that cost up to 65,000 points per night. Um, the irony about this, so it used to be that it was difficult to get full value from Marriott's 50K certs because they had a bunch of properties that were priced around 40K and a bunch of properties that were priced 70K and up, and so it was hard. But the good news is most of those properties that used to be priced 40K are now like 55K or so. So you can get full value from the certs now, thanks to Marriott's continued Bonvoying you efforts.
Yeah, I think the interesting thing about either of these offers is that I assume I haven't looked because I've been on vacation, but I assume that you'll see probably some places online advertising these as, an offer worth up to 250,000 points or up to 300,000 points. And
Mhm.
like Greg explained already, both programs here actually have a mechanism for getting one night for free when you're staying 4 or 5 nights. IHG, it's fourth night free when you're using points if you're a card holder. Marriott, it's stay four, stay five, pay for four, whatever. So you're
Mhm.
not going to get the full headline point value. And ironically, because of the way that works, the certificates are probably more valuable if you don't need them for a 5 consecutive night stay, right? Because
Right.
like
Right.
if you need a 5 consecutive night stay with IHG, for instance, you could buy the points for that for $1,200, and you might get more than $1,200 worth of value out of 5 separate nights. So it's kind of wonky
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
that, where
Yeah.
I think these
It
offers
is.
are better for people that don't need a 5 night stay.
Right, right. Yeah, you're much better off if you end up using them in like a 3 night stay and a 2 night stay or
Right.
whatever, right?
Yeah.
That's true. On the other hand, if you have them and you have a 5 night stay,
Well, right, right,
use them because it's
right.
much better to use them
Yes, than not.
than to let them go to waste. I've known too many people who
True
end
story.
up end of year, like end of the, as the certificates are about to expire, end up staying somewhere that would have cost like 25,000 points or something just
Right,
to use them at all, and
right.
and that's a shame if you do that.
It is. It is. All right. Next up today is Bonvoyed 5 ways. Been Bonvoyed 5 ways this week. Wow. I go on vacation for a week or two here, and we're getting Bonvoyed everywhere. So what happened this week?
Yeah. First, let me say, I don't think Marriott has made the Bonvoy list this week. I must be
Congratulations,
missing
Marriott.
something in this outline
Congratulations.
because they usually work so hard to get in this list. So
Well
must be
done. Well
missing something.
done.
But
All
let's
right.
let's
I'll
start with what Capital One
Yeah,
did.
there you go. Yeah, I can start with this one. So Capital One
Okay.
Shopping, of course, I've talked a lot about this and how much I love the portal, and then they go ahead and slap everybody across the face by pulling away most of the good gift card redemption options. And that really stinks because tons of the options that were worthwhile are gone for most people, and that makes it even more confusing because if you're paying attention there, I didn't say gone across the board. Different people have different gift card redemption options. So Capital One Shopping, as a reminder, is a shopping portal. Anybody can use it. You don't need a Capital One account or a card. You just need an email address in order to use Capital One Shopping. And they advertise these big sort of cash back rates, 20% back, 30% back, etc. And oftentimes they're really good, but the rewards come in the form of dollars that you can only redeem for gift cards, and they only have certain merchants. And up until recently, they had enough that were useful enough for enough people, I think, to make Capital One Shopping pretty compelling at those 20 or 30% back rates. But they've pulled so many of the good ones at this point. And in fairness, we've seen gift card redemption options come and go over time. So we've seen some of the good ones get pulled and then come back later and they get pulled again. But this was really kind of a big pull of lots of them for most people, but not everybody. Go figure. I don't
Yeah.
really
Yeah.
understand what's going on.
And just as a reminder, Capital One Shopping is where you don't actually need a Capital One card. It's just an online shopping portal and it advertises cash back. But what you really get are the ability to redeem for gift cards. And the fewer gift card options they have, the less valuable that
Yeah.
those rewards become to you. And that's a shame. I mentioned on our Ask Us Anything last night, as we're recording this, it's last night, that I'm thinking my hotels.com was gone last I checked, and I'm thinking of just redeeming all of my rewards for the Expedia Global Hotel thing. I checked a couple of hotels I'd been looking at and made sure prices were actually reasonable. They're a tiny bit higher than what I could find elsewhere, but not bad, of the couple I looked at. So just having a slush fund basically to book hotels when points aren't a good option would be better than waiting until even that option is gone from the
Yeah. Yeah.
shopping
Yeah,
redemptions.
that's definitely quite a bummer because I had been redeeming for hotels.com gift cards and just assumed I would probably continue to do that using it exactly as Greg said. Yeah, so I guess I do probably need to redeem the rest for the global hotel card. I'm not excited about that, and I'm gonna be even less excited if they suddenly bring back a bunch of gift card redemption options. Thanks for that, Capital One. All right. So that's Capital One shopping, but that's not it this week. Capital One was getting to business this week. They wanted to make the list not once, but at least twice.
Yeah, yeah, twice on the Bonvoy list this week. So they announced changes to the Venture X and Venture X business cards as to lounge access policies. So as things stand right now, if you have the Venture X personal card, you can go into Priority Pass lounges and Capital One lounges and bring in a couple guests for free. You can also, if you have any authorized users, they can get into lounges for free and bring in guests. Well, all of that's changing. So the starting February 1st, 2026, no more free guests.
Mm.
If you're using the Priority Pass access, you are going to, this one, Priority Pass is if you have the business version, you'll still be able to bring in two free guests. But if you have the personal version, you're going to have to pay $35 per guest for Priority Pass. So
Mm.
that becomes like really one of the worst versions of Priority Pass that are out
Oh,
there. Venture X started off having one of the best, and now they've dropped to they're not even in competition anymore, unfortunately. Although the business one is now sort of equal to many other options, I guess you could say. Now, as far as getting into Capital One lounges, you also have no free guests unless you spend $75,000 in a calendar year on your card, in which case then you can bring in two free guests. You'd be able to bring in guests for the rest of that calendar year and all of the next. Or you can pay $45 per adult guest and $25 per child. So
what?
that's all icky. And then if you thought that was bad enough,
They weren't done. They weren't done.
you're not done. Those authorized user cards that you handed out so that your friends and family could get into lounges, those authorized user cards will no longer have lounge access of any kind unless those authorized users pay $125 per year to add on lounge access benefits to their card. And those lounge access benefits have the same limitations I was just talking about no free guests unless you spend 125,000. Now, luckily that
75,000.
not 75,000. Luckily that spend is across all. If you have a Venture X card and four authorized users, you just have to spend $75,000 altogether across all of them, and then all five of those cards will have guest access. So
Man, this is
yeah,
rough. This is rough,
it,
and it's like, on the one hand, I don't use that many Priority Pass lounges anymore. I shouldn't say anymore. I mostly travel using my miles in business class when I'm flying internationally, so that I'm usually using a business class lounge. And domestically, I don't just end up traveling through a ton of airports with Priority Pass lounges. So it's not something I use all the time, but it's something I use from time to time. And if you don't have a good version of this, you can't be the only rewards card in my wallet. And that's the problem here because the Venture X,
mhm.
I feel like, was a pretty good solution if you wanted a single good travel rewards card with all the right perks, because it really ticked all the boxes in terms of having a good base level return, 2 points per dollar everywhere that you could transfer to a bunch of good airline partners and some okay hotel partners, maybe. And then it had the travel stuff that you would want, like this. And so you take this away, and it's like, well, I can't just have a Venture X card. Then I need to have something else that has a better version because I can't go to the airport and not bring my wife into the lounge, and usually we're traveling with the kids too. I'm not paying $45 for my wife and
Right.
$25 $100 for each.
Right.
$95. Forget it. I'm not paying all that to
Right.
get in the lounge. Get out of here. Capital One. Come on.
Right. Right. So yeah. So real quick, two options for getting good versions of Priority Pass that are shareable with your family are the Ritz card. So you can that Bonvoy Boundless card we talked about before. After you've had it for a year, you can ask to upgrade to the Ritz card, and that gives you free Priority Pass and free authorized users. And each authorized user can get their own Priority Pass, and they can have unlimited free guests. In fact, Nick, you just tested that theory, right?
I did, yeah. So we flew out of JFK Terminal 1 for the beginning of this trip. I'm in Europe as we're recording this, and we flew out of JFK Terminal 1, and JFK Terminal 1 does not have clear. Crazy, right? But Terminal 1 has a Priority Pass lounge that sits airside right next to the security lanes. It's just to the left of the security lanes in Terminal 1. And the key benefit, I mean, there's a little lounge there if you want to sit and eat a snack or something. But the key benefit of that lounge is that they have a private entrance to security. So you go directly to the TSA agent, you skip the whole line. So I wanted to test it out. I have my wife also has a Ritz card and have added her sister as an authorized user. So we had enough priority passes that it wouldn't have been a problem anyway, slice or dice it, but I wanted to just test it out. There were 8 of us traveling. So I handed my priority pass over and said I'd like to bring 7 guests. And they, boop, boop, boop. And I didn't get charged anything for the seven
Yeah,
guests. So,
that's awesome.
so that was great.
Yeah, yeah. The other option I wanted to call out for a great version of Priority Pass and shareable is the Bank of America Premium Rewards Elite card, which gives you a full Priority Pass, including restaurant access, which the Ritz card does not do, and lets you give other people Priority Pass memberships, even without them being authorized users. So you could just skip that authorized user part and just give people, I can't remember how many it gives, but there's 3 or 4, I think, that you can dole out.
Yeah.
So that's a really nice option as well.
There you go. All right, let's talk next about Iberia. Iberia broke my heart, and I didn't even know it happened until I started seeing comments about it. And I was like, oh, whoa, what happened here? Because again, I've been out of town. The Iberia devaluation, I guess business class between the US and Europe no longer starts at 34,000 miles each way. How much does it cost now?
Yeah, now it starts at 40,500 miles one way in when it's off peak. As you said before, it was 34,000 off peak. Now this was just for routes that were particularly short, like from New York or Boston to Madrid, or there were a handful of airports where you can grab that, and now it's a bit more. Yeah, I don't know about the other guys, but this was one of the things I had been, considering looking for when trying to design the our challenge trip that's coming up is could we make this work? Now 40,500 miles is still an incredible deal. But not as incredible. And, because before 34,000 was like what you'd pay in economy with most programs, and you got
Right.
business class with Iberia. Now it's a bit more than that. So anyway, yeah, a shame.
Okay, next up, Citi replaces the Rewards Plus card with the new Citi Strata card, which is confusingly named because it sounds a lot like the Strata Premiere, but it isn't. And unfortunately, really what stinks is that if you currently have a Rewards Plus card, it will be forcibly converted to a Strata card soon, starting July 20th of 2025. And the bad news is that neither the Rewards Plus is 10% points rebate. So, as a reminder, the Rewards Plus card gives back 10% in points redeemed each year, up to 10,000 points back. So, you redeem 100,000 points, you get 10,000 back each year. And that feature is not going to be part of the Strata card, and neither will the roundup feature where it rounds up your points to the nearest 10 or something like that.
Right.
So none of the key features of the Rewards Plus are moving over. There are some things that might be decent about it for some people, but it's a big bummer for anybody who had and held and loved the Rewards Plus card.
Yeah, I really thought the Rewards Plus was going to be a collectible where, it's no longer available new, but you get to keep it if you have it. And That 10% rebate was a great little perk for a fee-free card. So if you have the card, make sure to ideally redeem. Make sure you've redeemed 100,000 points this year by before July 20th, so that you'll get your full 10% back. And yeah, that's a shame.
Bummer, dude. Yeah. Yep. All right. Next up, United has killed its excursionist perk. This was a perk that you had really enjoyed and written about a couple of times already. The excursionist perk is where you get a free one way when you're booking a
Round trip
sort
award,
of a
sort of
trip.
round
Yeah,
trip-ish
round trip
award. Yeah.
award. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and there were lots of ways of kind of tricking it into doing a lot more than what it's intended for. And yeah, United's killing it off as of August 21st, 2025. But so that is a shame, especially since I'm going to be using chase points in the upcoming challenge, and my goal was to like identify the places where chase has an edge over others, and one place is the ability to transfer points to United. But now, like, I don't even know of any great uses of United miles right off the top of my head. At least that would be within the 100,000 point threshold. So anyway, so that's dead. But I did want you, Nick, to read your little ode to the death of this perk.
I'm glad you said read and not sing. I'll
I'll
let
let
the
you read it.
readers add the music. A long, long time ago, I can still remember how that UA perk used to make me smile. And I knew if I had my chance that I could make my miles dance and maybe I'd be flying free for a while. But August 21st, 2025 made me shiver with every email I delivered. Bad news on the website. I couldn't redeem one more time. I can't remember if I cried when I read that UA's killed free rides, but something touched me deep inside the day the excursionist perk died.
I love it. Nick published that on the week in review right after that happened, and right as he was heading off on vacation, um, and I just enjoyed that so much. So forced him to read that.
Hopefully, a few of you sung along. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I'll be here all week, folks. All right. Now let's talk about awards, points, and more, which also has like a whole bunch of things going on here this
Yeah,
week.
yeah. Will we ever get to the main event? I don't know.
I don't know. Maybe sometime. First up, you can still upgrade to Emirates first class, even if you don't have status. And we know that because you did it.
Yes, I did. So, if you've been following along, you know that Emirates made a unfriendly change to their ability to book first class awards with Emirates miles. They now say you have to have elite status with Emirates in order to do that. However, that left a question. What if we book business class with miles and then use miles to upgrade at the airport? And I was in that position. I had a business class flight booked to return from Italy to the US, and was hoping to upgrade it at the airport. When the news broke, I was like, uh-oh, what's going to go on? What's going to happen here? And to further compound the problem, I transfers to Emirates are temporarily down across the board. And I knew that was coming before my flight. So I made a gamble. I transferred the required number of points in order to upgrade at the airport. Showed up at the airport on May 31st with my wife, hoping to upgrade it first. Went to the counter, said, hey, we'd like to do this. And boom, it worked. So that was great news
Nice.
that you can still do that.
That's excellent. That's really good news. Awesome. All right. That's the first piece. Next up, Tim published a piece that I have been waiting for him with bated breath to publish. He finally published How to Book EVA Air Infinity MileageLands Awards, or is it EVA?
EVA, I think.
EVA.
Yeah.
EVA. Okay. The airline based in Taipei. So the how to book those awards for multiple people, which is much more complex than it is with some other programs, or at least it feels that way. It feels intimidating. And I know that Tim's redeemed with them several times now, so I was glad that he published a post on how to do that.
Yeah, I was really glad because when I've read before about how to do it, like other blogs have kind of said, Well, we just each redeem points ourselves because it's very complicated to redeem a single award for multiple people, and it's even kind of complicated to redeem an award for one person, but it gets next level when you're doing multiple people. So Tim has the guide. You do have to do some strange things to make it happen. Tap tap your head and rub your belly or whatever at the same time and hope for the best. But it doesn't. While it's confusing, I think Tim laid it out very clearly, and it's. I don't think it's that scary now. It's just you got to just jump through some hoops and follow along with what he said.
Yep. But maybe jumping through those hoops will give you the result that you're looking for. Speaking of getting results, Hyatt is now giving you an opportunity to earn points while you're working out. So you can earn bonus points for using Peloton equipment at participating Hyatt properties for a while. I can't remember if there were certain dates on this or not, but I know you earn 100 points per workout of at least 20 minutes. So, no 5-minute bike rides. You're going to have to work out for at least 20 minutes. And you can only earn up to 1,000 points per month. So if you're a frequent, workout person, then you'll hit that limit probably. But I mean, that's not bad. An easy 1,000 points a month. And there are 730 participating properties. So it's not every Hyatt, but there's quite a few anyway where you could
Yeah.
potentially earn this. So I'm going to be on the lookout. If I'm staying at a Hyatt that has Peloton equipment, I'm certainly going to look up and see if it's participating. Might as well try and pick up some free easy point. Easy. Do we
Absolutely,
call it
and
easy?
it's
Yeah,
great that
easy
they
points.
encourage you to get some exercise too. Why not?
Yeah.
Now this isn't actually new. This has been around for a bit, but Stephen reposted information about this, and I'm glad he did because I forgot about it entirely. So whenever it came out, it was something that kind of came and went, and I didn't think about it at the time for some reason. And it's not a lot of points that we're talking about, obviously, but Hyatt does let you transfer points to another person for free. It's unfortunately not an online process, but you can do it. And so if you travel as a family and work out together, you can increase this point total pretty easily and get in shape. So that seems like a good thing to talk about and do.
Yeah, absolutely. Great tip there. All right, JetBlue and United, the partnership is developing there, and they've announced some details, not all the details, but we now have some details of what this JetBlue United partnership is going to look like. For instance, there is going to be reciprocal mileage redemption and earning. So you're going to be able to redeem miles through United to fly on JetBlue and vice versa, and also, of course, earn them on either airline. And there are also going to be reciprocal elite benefits. Do we know much about what redemptions are going to look like yet, or which benefits are offered with this
Yeah, we don't
reciprocal
know
benefit
anything.
situation?
Yeah, we don't know anything about award pricing or award availability. They did put out a chart showing what you'll get as a United elite member flying JetBlue, and it's kind of you pick a preferred seat or whatever. It's there was nothing too exciting in that list. So, you're not going to be I don't know. It's not going to be something to aspire to go out of your way to aspire to. But if you are already either a JetBlue flyer or a United flyer, having the extra flights available to you should be really good. The other thing out of this, United is going to get some of JetBlue's gates at JFK, in New York's JFK airport, which they don't currently fly to JFK, and that could be really big for connectivity to international flights. So that's a nice change theoretically, although it scares me because right now I'm relying on JetBlue has a Detroit to JFK route that has come and gone and come back over time. And I'm really worried that that's going to be one of the gates that JetBlue gives up to United. And I promise you, United is not going to fly from Detroit to JFK. They're not going to use that as their primary route, to use one of their few gates they get. So, yeah, for me, not as excited as I was before about this situation, but that's just based on that one very specific issue.
Yep. All right. Well, so there we have a little bit more information on that. IHG points. We now have a new look at what IHG points are worth thanks to looking at some data from Gondola.
Yeah. So Gondola is that hotel award search tool that I've talked about before. It's free to use, and it does a good job of showing what hotels are available with points and lets you sort by best value of your points, things like that. So I like it for that. But what I really love is that the founder of Gondola has worked closely with us to allow us access to their data. They have huge amount of data on the cash prices and point prices for hotels around the world, and they developed a tool to let us explore that data, and they've modified it for our needs in order to let us use this tool to generate these reasonable redemption values that we do, so that we have a good idea of how much different hotel points are worth. So we're using that tool. We're starting off with IHG, and you'll soon see other hotels updated. Our reasonable redemption values updated for other hotels thanks to Gondola. So with IHG, for example, so before we were manually searching a bunch of cities and a handful of dates and all the combinations thereof to get the data for this, and it was a big pain. Now we let Gondola do the work. They have over 2 million internet, domestic and international searches at almost 6,300 different IHG properties. So it's a much, much broader range. And yet, at least with IHG, the answer came out almost identical to what we had come up with through our manual process. So with Gondola, the median point value that they show is at the time of our recording is 0.61 cents per point. That's how much value you get per IHG point. We had in our data before that 0.62. So, not even a difference that would matter to anybody. So that sort of helps us feel good about a couple things. One, that that the way we were doing it was before wasn't that bad, but even more that since we're going to be moving on to this new automated process, like it gives us a sense, like, yeah, how they're collecting data and reporting it to us seems to be accurate. So it's sort of
Right.
a check in both directions there. And it also gives us the ability to publish percentiles, which we've done before in our posts about these things. And so, like the 75th and 90% percentiles with IHG only come to like 0.66 and 0.71 respectively, which means like if you cherry pick awards with IHG, you're going to have a hard time doing a lot better. So you're doing a little bit better than the median, but not a lot better. Their range is really tight, unfortunately. Whereas some other programs like Marriott, the range is much, much wider. So there's more opportunity to get a lot more outsized value.
There you go. But really, I think it was really cool. I thought it was awesome to find out that our RRV was so close with the
Yeah,
system that we had, which was
totally.
so much more limited. But always thought a reasonably good alternative since we didn't have the ability to collect such a wide range of data points. And I think it was pretty amazing to see just how close that methodology hit. So well done, Greg, on developing the methodology that we've long used. But now we have even more accurate data or more data points behind it.
Yeah.
So
And again, big
that's
thanks to
exciting.
Gondola and the team there for
Yeah.
supporting us with this. They're not charging us for access to the data. So, in turn, giving them some free publicity by talking about their tool. And it's so valuable what we've developed here. Also, we're not ready for any of this yet, but it lets us look at things like what brands are most valuable to spend your points at. And so we're going to be doing some analyses with different programs. There's not that much interesting with IHG along those lines, but There's some really interesting data with Marriott and some others. I think you'll see some really interesting stuff about Hyatt as well coming soon.
Very good. Awesome. All right. So that, my friends, brings us to this week's main event.
Main event time. Announcing the 100K Vacay Team Challenge. This year, we're going to be competing to see who can book the most amazing 100,000 point vacation. That's it. You've got 100,000 points. Build an entire vacation around it. Who's gonna come up with the best? I'll tell you what. I'm hoping it's not me. And the reason I'm hoping it's not me is that I'm not really going to be a challenger. I'm going to be sort of the pace car in this. I'm going to be doing a trip before the other guys do, and we're sort of referring to it as the benchmark trip. I'm going to be taking 100,000 Chase Ultimate Rewards points and building the best vacation I can out of 100,000 Chase points, and that'll be the benchmark. Of course, the reason that we picked 100,000 points, or part of the reason anyway, I should say, is because of that big Chase Sapphire Preferred 100K offer that expired in May. Now we feel like lots of people have 100,000 points and wondering what they can do with them, and we want to show some really cool things that you can do. But at the same time, it would be kind of boring to just limit it to just Chase. So the other guys aren't going to use Chase points. Before we get into what they are going to be using, though, the reason Chase points are the benchmark trip is because we are requiring at least 3 nights hotel stay on this vacation. And we believe that whoever has the ability to transfer to Hyatt has a huge advantage because Hyatt has their reward chart and it starts at only 3,500 points per night at the far lowest end. And that's like way better than what any of the other like hotel transfers will allow. So Chase has a big leg up. And so the benchmark trip is going to be using Chase points, has the ability to transfer to Hyatt, has a big leg up. The challengers, though, don't have Chase points. What do they have? Nick, do you want to read those?
Sure. So, Tim, and I should say, we each picked the currency that we wanted to use for this one. We were originally talking about maybe drafting it or something, but then we realized that we each had one we were really excited about digging into. And I think that's going to make this even more fun than if we had just stuck somebody with one they didn't pick, because I think we're all kind of motivated to show what you can do with our particular currencies. So Tim picked Citi Thank You rewards. So he's got a number of, obviously, of course, airline partners, but then also he's got things like 1 to 2 to choice privileges. He's got leading hotels of the world. He's got 1 to 4 to preferred hotels. He's got a number of interesting lodging options to go along with the airline partners, though his airline partners are perhaps more limited than, say, Steven's, because Steven took Capital One miles, and Capital One has some transfer partners that Citi doesn't. So Steven will have more opportunities to redeem miles for flights, presumably. But on the lodging side, Stephen, of course, has like Wyndham at 1 to 1 and Accor at 2 to 1. And is there anything? I don't even. Is it a
Yeah,
choice? I
there's
guess I
not
think
much
it's 1 to
going
1.
on
I don't
there.
know. Not very much. So good luck, Stephen, figuring out how to do that.
Right. And what about you?
And then, of course, I have American Express membership rewards points, which I have long been a proponent of Amex membership rewards. So I am excited to show people how much better they're going to be than Chase Ultimate Rewards points for planning an incredible vacation with just 100,000 points.
I'm going to have some questions for you about that as we get towards the end of this, but let's get into more details about
Okay.
the challenge. As we've done in the past few challenges, there will be 2 judges of this. I'm going to be one of the judges, and Carrie will be the other. And we felt like it was important to have 2 judges, and even more than that, have one of the blog authors not traveling at the same time as everybody else. So, because despite us doing a big challenge, the rest of the world doesn't stop, and so big things tend to happen that need to be reported on. It's very frustrating, and I do wish we could just like stop, all other points and miles events from happening while we are doing our challenge, but we can't. So anyway, two judges will be at home while the three guys are taking their trip. This will all happen in the fall, by the way. There is going to be $1,000 cash budget. And what that means is, we're all expected to use points as much as possible to book flights and hotels. But there are other things. There's taxes and fees. There are airport transfers. There is food. There is, outings and things like whatever. Everything else, everything that you,
Activities. Yeah.
there are activities, right? So everything you spend has to be limited to 100,000 points and $1,000 cash budget. Now, you might ask, well, what about if someone, let's say, pays for an activity through a shopping portal that gives 20% cash back? Can they sort of expand their budget that way? And the answer is no. We're going to be evaluating the cash budget is a hard cash budget. That's how much out of pocket you can spend, regardless of what kind of rebates you get. However, we are going to be judging everyone based on the affordability of their overall trip, and that's where the rebates will come in. We'll be looking at, Nick spent $1,000, but he got back $800 or whatever it is, and so that would look really, really good for evaluating his trip at the end.
But that's not the only rule. There are a whole bunch of different rules, right? So, I mean, and people want to know, what are the rules, Greg? So that's going to be how we're going to determine the $1,000 cash budget portion. It's got to cover everything, and you can't expand the budget. You also can't expand the budget. Well, you know what? Let's start at the top of the rules and work our way down. So first of all, by popular demand, this challenge has to be round trip. Our past challenges have mostly been one-way challenges under the premise that if you wanted to make it a round trip, you could just double the points if you wanted to copy the same thing in reverse, so to speak. But this time around, you have to start and end in the same place. Now, I mean, maybe we'd be a little liberal with that. Like if you departed from, Washington Dulles and you returned to Washington Reagan, okay,
Sure.
that's probably fine. But you can't open jaw and say, okay, I'm leaving from New York and returning to Los Angeles. It's got to be like kind of co-terminal, so sort of a situation. So round trip, start and end in the same place. You can pick wherever you want, though, in the U.S. And I know a couple of people commented and said, oh, it would have been great to have Steven start in Europe because he's based in the U.K. now. And I thought so, too. I tried to convince Steven to start in the U.K. because I thought, oh, that'll produce some different stuff. But he really felt like it'd be more widely applicable to everybody if he started in the U.S. too. So we're all starting somewhere in the U.S. Nobody knows where everybody else is going to start yet. Each one of us can start wherever we want. I will probably start in the Northeast, but in order to make it as applicable as possible, we'll each pick probably a pretty major airport somewhere in the U.S. Minimum of 3 nights in proper lodging. Now, this was how Greg worded this, and I feel a little judginess here. I mean, what makes lodging proper, Greg? I don't know. 3 nights in a hotel.
I wanted
Right?
to, I mainly wanted to avoid someone sleeping on airplanes for the whole trip. And so I don't count, an overnight flight as proper lodging. But if you're on a cruise ship for 3 nights or more, that counts. If you are in an Airbnb that you somehow booked with your points, then that's fine. You do have to book the lodging and the most of the flights with hotel points or airline miles for all of that, though. We're not letting you do for the majority of it cash equivalent points where you use bank points to book through their bank's portal kind of thing, or we're not letting you do use your cash budget to handle most of that stuff. Now, I'm hedging on that because there are situations like, let's say someone flew to the Maldives and they have to pay $300 for the airport transfer to their island where they're staying. Well, that has to come out of the cash budget. Kind of obviously. There's also things like someone might end up, let's say, somewhere in Europe with the maybe cross the Atlantic with miles, but now to get a short distance within Europe, maybe they take Ryanair or something with their cash budget. Those kind of things would be okay.
Very good. All right. But now here's a question that somebody out there is thinking of. If the budget is 100,000 transferable points and $1,000 in cash, can you buy some more points? What if Hilton points are on sale and I want to buy some Hilton points? Can I buy those?
No, no, because we're going to be keeping in mind the judges that, and we want the contestants to keep this in mind too, that the goal is really, are you able to build and create a great vacation with 100,000 points? Kind of full stop, right? Now, we recognize there's cash is required as well, but we really want the majority of the trip to be based on those 100,000 points and not and also to show off what you could do with the particular transferable points you have. If you end up buying points, that's kind of going around the whole purpose. And it would be interesting, maybe as a separate challenge, to see who could build the best trip out of purchase points within a given budget. But that's not what we're doing here.
All right. And you can't cash out points, right? So you can't say, okay, I'm going to cash out 20,000 points and have an extra $200 in my cash budget. None of that. We're going to use the points for flights and hotels and use the cash to pay the stuff that you really have to pay for with cash. So we're not cashing out points. We're not looking to showcase great cash bargains. We're looking to showcase great uses of points, like Greg said. The rebates, like we said, don't affect the budget, but they will affect your affordability score. So if you manage to find a way to spend $1,000 and get 800 of it back, well, great. That'll help you with the affordability when they kind of, and style points when they evaluate how you did spending your budget. So the goal here is not necessarily to spend the full $1,000 even. It's really to showcase the best use of the points, and the less money you spend, the better almost, though of course, obviously within reason, because everyone wants their vacation to be relatively comfortable. And of course, transfer bonuses are almost certainly going to be part of this. All of the transfer bonuses that happen during the travel planning phase are fair game. So there are already some transfer bonuses out. And if one of us could take advantage of one of those transfer bonuses, we can go ahead and use that. We don't need to declare it in advance. So, we have the opportunity for any of the transfer bonuses that occur during our planning phase. We can take advantage of any one of those. And I'm, again, almost certain that some of us will probably take advantage of the opportunity to sort of expand our budget, but not really. It's using the points we have and using one of those superpowers, in the sense that a transfer bonus can kind of supercharge your points.
Yeah, yeah. All right. Let's talk about who's going to win. I've sort of laid out the odds in a way based on the strengths and weaknesses of each of the points programs. So let me go through first. So I ranked the strengths from best to worst for this particular challenge, as starting with Citi Thank You Rewards as number one. And the reason I did that is because I think that the ability to book hotels with a reasonable number of points is such an important part of this challenge that I think Tim has a big advantage here, because he can transfer his Citi Thank You points 1 to 4 to preferred hotels, or 1 to 2 to choice. And I think both of those have some incredible opportunities to get really nice hotels at a very reasonable rate. If I was Tim, I'd be scouring the preferred hotels program for what is the most awesome hotel in the world that can be booked for a reasonable number of preferred hotel points, and then you only need a quarter that many Citi points in order to make that happen because of that 1 to 4 transfer. And then I'd be secondarily figuring out, well, how the heck am I going to get there? That's how I would approach that if I was Tim. And of course, he's not limited to just that. He also has Wyndham. And then on the flight side, he's the only one that has EVA, which has some unique benefits. He has Turkish 1-to-1, so does Steven. So if he chooses, for example, to do a trip, uh, you know, fly to Hawaii, he could start in U.S. Northeast and fly to Hawaii for 10,000 points with Turkish or to Alaska. So there's some things that are pretty good there that they can do travel wise because you do not have to travel internationally to do this challenge. So that's Tim with Citi Thank You Rewards. Steven, Capital One Miles. Now the main hotel thing that's available through Capital One Miles, where it's possible to get outsized value, is Wyndham Rewards. I mean, as far as what I know of, now Stephen may know of some tricks that I'm not thinking of. He probably does, but I'm kind of guessing he's going to take advantage. Wyndham has some partnerships, like Vacasa Vacation Rentals, like cottages.com in the UK, where you can book some pretty amazing vacation rentals for as low as 15,000 points per night. My guess is that's what Steven's going to be going for there. Nick has Amex membership rewards, which great program for airline transfers, airline mileage transfers. Not much going on in the hotel space. You've got 1-to-1 to Marriott, you've got 1-to-1 to Choice, you've got 1-to-2 to Hilton, but Hilton points are so sort of worth so little compared to other hotel points that 1-to-2 isn't even that exciting. I think Nick's main advantage here is that Amex has more transfer bonuses than any other program. And that could make his points go way, way further. So there's a possibility of him, really acing this because he will likely have a lot more points available to him than the other guys will, thanks to transfer bonuses. Okay, so now I've given my outline of this scenario, but now I want to hear from Nick. What are you thinking? The strengths and weaknesses are. Particularly, I'm particularly interested in why you're excited to use Amex membership rewards.
Well, I'm excited about a lot of different things here. I'm excited because I think you are going to set a high bar. I think that I don't know what you're going to do yet, but I imagine it's going to be good enough that a number of readers are going to say, whoa, how's anybody going to top that? And Greg does have a strong advantage here because, he mentioned that Hyatt Category 1 start at 3,500 points per night. And that's true, but probably most of those Category 1 Hyatts are not wildly exciting. But the thing is, like, even at Category 2 and Category 3, we're talking, 8,000 points per night standard, 12,000 points per night standard. Greg wouldn't even use half of his budget if he stayed at a Category 3 Hyatt for 3 nights. And by the time you get to Category 3, there are some reasonably nice places in there. Certainly some in Category 2 as well. So he's got a number of really good lodging options. So I think that he's going to come up with something that really surprises us. He already hinted at one thing he could do earlier. Because if he was able to, take advantage of that Iberia sweet spot, he could potentially fly business class to Spain, stay a few nights, and come home in business class, which is pretty good for 100,000 points. So I'm excited to see what he does because he kind of threw that out like it was not good enough. And he's right. It's not good enough because we are going to outdo that, I think. I think all three of us are going to come up with something pretty cool. I'm excited about Amex for a number of reasons. Number one, because I think Amex has the best flight transfer partners. And I most often talk about that in context of business class and first class awards because they do have so many great opportunities to get great deals on business class flights. We don't talk as much about the great opportunities in economy class because I'm not generally as excited. There aren't as many opportunities for way outsized value, or so I thought until I started digging into it. Then I realized, you know what? There are lots of really good opportunities to redeem for economy class or premium economy potentially. So I'm pretty excited to showcase what you might be able to do with just 100,000 points by stretching things that we haven't written very much about before. So I got some ideas going. I got some things building. that are certainly exciting to me. And to use Greg's example again with Iberia, I could do the trip that I just mentioned if as long as I can find the lodging portion of it, because with the current, I think there's a 30% transfer bonus to Avios as we
There is.
record this. So if I were able to find a flight for 40,500 miles in business class, that's what, something just over 30,000, 33,000, I guess, Amex points each way, which would leave me with, if I'm doing the quick math, around 34,000 Amex points after a round trip flight to Spain in business class. And I think there's also a targeted transfer bonus to Hilton. And I haven't even checked to see as we record this whether I'm targeted for that or not. But if I were, then I think at 34,000 Amex membership rewards points left, that would give me what, 70, 80, I don't know, somewhere around 80,000 Hilton points. I bet I could get 3 nights at a decent Hilton with that. So, and as I say that, that kind of should give you an idea as to why I think it's going to be pretty easy for me to come up with 3 nights. I think the transfer ratio and current bonus to Hilton, if I'm targeted, cross my fingers because I literally have not checked. I haven't logged in to any accounts like that while I've been on vacation here, so I don't know yet. But I'm hoping that that might happen. And so there'll be a number of different options. And I think a lot of people have overlooked certain parts of the world where Hilton does have opportunities for good value still, because there are quite a
Yeah.
few, I think, where at the lower end of the spectrum, Hilton has outsized value. And so when you get, if I'm able to get 1 to 2.6, that's really good. Now, all that said, don't forget about Protea in Africa, because there are some really well-priced Marriott properties throughout Africa. I mean,
Yeah.
I had booked one during the or for a summer trip to Victoria Falls last year for, I think it was 10,500 points per night at the
Which
Livingstone,
is
Protea
Marriott, by the
Livingstone
way,
or
right?
something near Victoria Falls, which is a Marriott. Yeah. So don't count Marriott out either,
Right.
is
Right.
what I'm saying here, because it's not uncommon to be able to get more than 1 cent per point. Again, especially at the lower end of the spectrum. I think actually when it comes to hotel points between Marriott and Hilton, there are way more opportunities to get good value at the very low end or at the very high end. And
Yeah.
obviously, with this challenge, I can't go for the very high end. And the middle is where things get murky. But at the low end, believe it or not, I have found a number of good opportunities. So it's just a matter of figuring out which of those trips I'm actually going to book.
Yeah.
But I think I have quite a few different options.
That's pretty exciting. And I want to point out something we didn't mention yet on the show is that 3 nights is the minimum, but if people do more than 3 nights, we're going to be giving bonus points for that. And both Marriott and Hilton, which Nick was just talking about, have fifth night free benefits. And so if he could just eke out enough to get 4 nights, then that really means he could do 5 nights and have a lot more
Mhm.
bonus points that way. So I'm really excited to see
That Greg the
whether
Frugal
he,
Miler, he's good at math, guys. He's good at math. He's got this.
I'm really excited to see whether he can pull it out because if he could show that you can actually do amazing things with Amex membership rewards and in the on the hotel front, then he's going to be that's gonna be great because as I started off saying, Amex membership rewards is considered the least likely to win the competition because it's so weak on hotel transfers, but maybe Nick's going to figure out how that's actually a strength.
I think so, and I'm gonna say that if you watched or Ask Us Anything this week as we publish this, then you probably heard us talk about how this is going to be sort of a more hotel centric type of a challenge because you got to find hotels that fit the budget, and that is true. But don't forget about my flights because I think I have a superpower in the flights. I am
Oh, that's
excited because
exciting.
I think I have quite a few different hotel options, and I think I
Uh-huh.
got flight options that at least some readers won't see coming. So we'll see.
Yeah, yeah.
I can't wait. I'm chomping at the
So,
bit to get started, and I haven't been on the computer because I've been on vacation, but I just can't wait to dig into it.
all right. One question about that though is, are some of those things that you're going to be able to do because you know about them and the other people don't, or because you're the only one who can transfer to those particular programs?
That's a great question, and one that I will leave Tim and Stephen to ponder.
All right, Dr. Evil.
But do remember, so Greg talked about, I don't know, did you get into this when we talked about scoring? So when it comes to scoring this thing, you're going to be scoring on a number of different criteria, one of them being affordability. Of course, whatever kind of pizzazz people pull out of the bag. But one of the things you talked about was applicability. And so, we want the things that we do to be applicable to a lot of people. And so, for instance, I have ANA as one of the options, and we can book now as we record this. And as we record this right now today, it's still June 5th, 2025, as we're recording this, actually. And so I could book an ANA round the world ticket, but you're not going to be able to do that anymore after, what is it, June 24th, June 30th, sometime this month, sometimes later this month, that's going to end, and you won't be able to do that at all anymore. And so doing that would be useless because it's not going to be
Right,
applicable to anybody else. So there's a
right.
number of things like that that might be really cool opportunities, but if they're too narrow, then they're not going to be broadly applicable enough for a lot of people. So I think that's something we really have to balance out with this
Yep.
challenge is trying to make it broadly applicable and hopefully find some things that are useful for a lot of people.
Yeah, no, I'm glad you pointed that out because that's really important. That's going to be really important to the how we judge the trips. It's why, I mean, I could also a similar thing is I could use United's excursionist perk because that doesn't end until August something. So I could book that even for my fall trip, but then it would be totally useless for anyone to learn about. We wouldn't be saying, here's what you could do now with 100,000 points. It would be, here's what you could have done a couple of months ago. and
Right.
we don't
Right.
want that. And of course,
No.
any one of us might book things that will disappear by the time we fly or soon after. We can't help that, but at least we can try to make what we do as applicable to a wide audience as possible so that we can really show what's really possible to do with 100,000 points. That's the goal. One other thing I'm
Can't
going to
wait.
mention,
Can't wait. It's going to be fun to see. Okay.
one other thing I'm going to
Go ahead.
mention is that um, audience participation. We haven't figured it out yet. We want to provide ways for the audience to contribute their own ideas, maybe to compete with us. We don't know. If you have ideas, please write in to the mailbag at frequentmiler.com or find our post on the blog about this and write in your ideas in the comments there. That would be great.
Very good. All right. I think that wraps up this week's main event for now, but stay tuned because obviously there will be more to come of the 2025 Frequent Miler Team Challenge, and I can't wait to see what that's going to entail. And you're going to want to stay tuned. And again, Greg said the trip's going to be happening this fall. We haven't released precise dates yet, but that's all stuff that is going on behind the scenes, and we'll get out there eventually. And I look forward to getting out some posts about scheming, about the various things we could be doing,
Yeah.
just to tease Stephen and Tim a little bit, throw them off the track. So, so that'll be coming soon to a blog near you. That wraps up the main event, though, and brings us to this week's question of the week. This week's question of the week came in via the mailbag. Andy writes in and says, "Dear Frequent Miler, I'm a huge fan of the podcast, so I hope you can address the credit limit / no preset spending limit topic. I went headfirst into the points and miles game in February and have earned a couple 100,000 miles already to apply to a first miles and points trip to Europe in 2026. One snafu that I've hit is the fact that the no preset spending limit cards might actually be more restrictive than the typical ones with credit limits, at least when first receiving the card. A couple of weeks ago, I had to complete a purchase from a car dealership for $35,000, and Capital One had their Venture X business offer of 150,000 miles for 30,000 spend in the first 3 months. So I got the card. I thought this would function as a charge card like Amex, but the Capital One system had essentially held me to a credit limit of only $10,000 or so. Now, I'll just interject here to say that's a card with no preset spending limit. So presumably you can spend as much as you need to, but of course, behind the scenes, there are limitations as to how much you're going to be able to spend based on your profile, whatever it is Capital One decides you can spend until you've established some sort of a pattern with them. So he wasn't able to put the whole charge on the card. Goes on to say that a while later, still seems to be bumping up against this $10,000 a month limit with Capital One. But Amex cards he hasn't had that problem with before on the cards that have no preset spending limit. But he says, to me, it's frustrating this is so restrictive, particularly in light of the $30,000 spend threshold. And let me know, how can one rack up the $200,000 in spend needed for the higher welcome bonus if you're restricted to a piddly $10,000 a month? Now, let me also interject with the fact that $10,000 a month is not piddly spend to many people. But of course, if you're trying to achieve the 200,000 spend, if you got a business that you've opened this card for, it's certainly not a number that is huge for many business people to be spending more than $10,000 a month. So he says, I think I would have preferred a card with an upfront $25,000 credit limit so I could just spend to the limit and know what it is. So if you could address this no preset spending limit phenomenon, I think it'd be valuable to those of us learning these quirks for the first time. Thanks, Andy. What
All
would you say
right.
to Andy here?
Lots of stuff there. First, let me say the mention of the $200,000 spend for the bigger offer. I think that particular offer will have ended by the time you listen to the show, or will soon end anyway. And so I just want to get that out there. But another thing is that once you've had a card for a while and spending a lot on it, they'll adjust their algorithms and allow you to purchase more. But that, of course, doesn't help if you're trying to hit a welcome bonus. So I think the thing to do, if you have a large purchase, you could try it. But if it's denied, try calling the bank right then and say, "Hey, I'm trying to buy a car. They're letting me use a credit card. Can you authorize this one payment?" And I've had that work with other banks before, not for a car, but for big purchases. I don't know for sure it would work with Capital One, but I'd be kind of surprised if you couldn't, if they wouldn't at least consider doing that for you.
Yeah, and if you happen to have a Capital One branch near you, maybe reaching out to a business relationship manager would help to get somebody whose job is to help businesses, develop a relationship and spend money on their cards, of course. So that might be another opportunity if just calling the number on the back of the card doesn't help you, finding an actual banker. If you happen to live in a city where there is a branch, then that would be a potential option. Greg mentioned calling the bank, and when I was purchasing a car on an Amex card a few years ago, and I hadn't been spending that much money on my Amex cards at that point, and so I called and I offered, and I think I did this. I can't remember now for sure, but I remember offering to pay up front, and I could send a payment ahead of time and prepay the 25,000 or 30,000 or whatever it was that I was spending on the car. And I feel like I did that. I prepaid that, and they were like, "Oh yeah, that'd be no problem then." And I think if I remember correctly, I don't know, I have to go back to the post and see what it was that I did, but I remember that coming up as a potential issue, whether or not I'd be able to spend it, because I was putting it on a platinum card that had no preset spending limit, and it was new, and so I didn't know, am I going to be able to spend that all at once or not? So again, calling the bank and seeing what ways there might be around it would be a useful tool. And again, I don't know what that's going to be like with Capital One. Capital One specifically might be more difficult than some other issuers in that regard. But there aren't that many no preset spending limit cards on the market apart from the Capital One business cards and the Amex membership rewards cards, basically, at this point, right? I mean, there's the Chase Inc. business.
Yeah, I don't know off the top of my head.
What is it? Premier?
The Premier
So there's not very
Inc.
many
Business
of
Premier.
those out there.
Yeah, not that
Yeah.
are relevant
So
to the
it's not
rewards world.
not going to be a broad issue. Right. It's not going to be a broad issue for in rewards card terms, but that would be, I think, my technique too, would be calling Capital One and explaining and seeing, though you may not get anywhere, and that would be a bummer if that's the case. And I don't know as though there's a much better solution for that, unfortunately.
Right, right. But hopefully it'll work. I mean, if it was me, just because Capital One hates me, they would just
Hopefully.
say no, we're just closing your account because we don't like you. But for most people, that shouldn't be what happens.
All right. Well, my friends, that wraps up this week's episode. If you've enjoyed this episode and you'd like to get more of this stuff in your email inbox each day or each week, you want to go to frequentmiler.com/subscribe to join our email list. Follow us on all the various social media. Join our Frequent Miler Insiders Facebook group. And if you have a question that you'd like to be considered for a future question of the week or a piece of feedback for our giant mailbag, you could send that too.
Send it to mailbag@frequentmiler.com. Bye, everybody.